Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Sit Down with Shibby. I'm joined by Mr. Ravish Khanna, aka the No Smokes firefighter man himself, aka the Brown Bandito, aka the most ravishing man on the internet. But most of you guys know him as RavishingRavish. My brother, how are you doing today?
Oh, well, solid intro. I would have said firstly, I would prefer you started off with my shtick, like just go right into it. Secondly, saying the goddamn copy pasta in the first line is crazy. And like that's -5 points. Shibby, come on, man. I had a lot of expectations coming into this. You already laying it down. Not after a good start. Let's see where this goes.
Perfect. Ravish, I ask everybody this question. I think it's always important, to tell the stories of people. How did you get into esports? How does someone like you get into casting, get into gaming? The gaming part, everybody plays video games, right? Relatively. Right. But how'd you get into the esports side? What was the turning point for you?
Sure. So I was born in a small town right outside New Delhi, India. It came to be very long ago, but I mean, I find my story is a little bit different than some. It's not as unique, but it's interesting enough. I was in university at Ryerson doing my undergrad in international relations and business management because I was like, yo, you know what? I'm trying to work for the UN. I already speak 4 languages. Learning the 5th at the time was Japanese. I do speak conversational Japanese, speak 5 languages as of right now. Thanks. It's and
what 5 languages do you speak? And you said conversational. So if I drop you in the country, you're good to go. You can get food, go to the bathroom, everything like that. So English, obviously one of them.
So this is the brown boy classic that pretty much everybody can claim. So I speak English, Hindi, Urdu, and Punjabi. Of course.
Okay, yeah, that's like
That's the brown boy classic.
That's the cheating. That's cheating a little bit. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But you said you start off. You're doing your undergrad, international business. You want to work for the UN. UN is here. Esports is there. So where are you in between all this?
So around 4th year, because I was an avid fan of the LCS pretty much for a very long time. I used to watch it like growing up with friends who I used to play Overwatch ranked with. Funny enough, and I was just a fan of League in general as a League player, and I think like right around like 4th year or so, I figured out that esports was an industry that existed. Went to a conference, met a guy named Mike Cotton, who was the owner of a startup called Red Team Wins, which was a Toronto-based small kind of boutique organization for representing creators, pretty much just a talent agency within gaming. So that all happens. I connect with him, and he does a huge partnership and merger with a group called MKM, where they became Toronto's first full-service talent agency and law firm for everything esports and gaming. I joined on as an intern for video editing. I did not know how to video edit. I lied, yes. But luckily, they didn't need a video editor. I just became the socials guy and helped out with Reed Trimble, who went on to make Bad Moon Talent. Good buddy of mine. Eventually, and so throughout that year that I was working at the startup, I started off also getting my postgrad in public relations at Humber. I was a 1-year intensive doing 8 courses a semester for 2 semesters straight. I was working at a job at a bank where I was a teller. I was doing that about 3 days a week, and I was, along with the courses that I had to do work for every single night, and also doing socials for the startup along with filming content as well. So my days, 5 days a week, would start at 5 a.m. and they would end at 10 every single day for a year. Yes, it was a very bad time.
That's brutal, because you eventually, I think everybody has to face that choice of like, do I want to go the traditional route? Do I want to do like what will be the safest outcome? Obviously, you're doing content. You kind of lied to being a video editor, which everybody lies on their resume. I get it. It goes all the way to the top. But you had to make that choice at one point or another. When did you say, hey, I've got a couple paths laid out? When was it the turning point for you where it was like, I'm going to do esports, I'm going to do casting, I'm going to do content, this is the industry that I want to do? I can't believe your parents were too happy.
I mean, here, man, it's as a born for yourself, it takes a little bit, but it came down to when I was finally to my postgrad. One of the clients you represented was a caster, and I asked him how to get into it, and he said, "Here's Broadcast GG. Connect with as many people as possible. Print out business cards, and good luck." So he gave me jack shit, which was great. And I'm like, cool, man. I guess you don't want competition or some shit, but whatever. It just came down to me, just doing all that, and then convincing my mom, like, hey, give me 2 years. I don't want to go into PR just yet. I don't want to work at some agency. I don't want to work in corporate. Give me 2 years. Let me figure it out. I want to try this whole casting thing. I want to see if I can actually do this. And if I'm not sustainable by the end of those 2 years, that being April 26, 2022, if I'm not sustainable, then I'll find something real. And off began the journey of where I entered Broadcast GG. I told them I wanted to be a caster. I looked at unpaid opportunities, and I took nothing for granted. I figured things out as I went along. I connected with as many people as possible. I was genuine. I was kind, and I looked to make sure that I could at least find one thing from the next, because I just did not let one opportunity end stationarily. One always had to lead to the next, some way, somehow.
Well,
that's kind of my story of how I got into it.
Well, now we're in June 6, 2023. I clearly don't hear a vacuum going off in the back or anything like that. So you've definitely found it to be stable. And I think one of the things that really, in my opinion, kind of propelled your popularity was you're one of the few casters that makes a boatload of content, man. The Ravishing Report, I mean, all the Twitter videos, like you are just going off consistently for the past 3 years now. You are doing short form breakdowns. There's so much stuff. Do you accredit your success to a lot of that content breakdown? Do you think there's not enough casters just creating content out there for themselves? I think you are a caster, but I would also classify you as a content creator, man. You got signed to Silvxs, you got signed to all these, different organizations. Obviously, we can talk about the big one later on, but would you say that was a big part in kind of getting your name out there, other than obviously just being a fantastic caster? Was the content that you created and the care that you showed around the games that you cared about?
Flatter will get you nowhere, Shibby, but thank you. I will. I'll tell you what. When I was doing when I was working at Rumble Gaming as well over the past year, what I did a lot of was the content game. I was assigned to elevate the presence, and there's a show still you can find on youtube.com/Rumble Gaming called Last Week Today. It was essentially a weekly recap news show where I filmed right here in Toronto. I would film on Wednesdays. This was my day, just so you get it. I would be up at, once again, 8 a.m. in the morning. I would find the top news stories of the day, just go ahead and do my scans. I would have a feedly on my phone of everything esports and gaming that happened, along with my Twitter stuff or whatever I would scan, and along with other news sites that I would check, like Kotaku, Dexterity, whatever. Find whatever was trending, get together and find about 3 to 4 news stories. I would script on the subway and on the streetcar on the way to the studio, which would be downtown, called Anthem. So Rumble had a partnership with them. A small rinky-dink little room where I would go ahead and film. I'll probably send you a couple clips or the videos to go and find if you want to overlay those, just to show you what's up and see how different I look as well, all the way for back then. Because that would have been early 2019 that I did all that. And then, I would go film Bengals out in an hour, have some breakfast at Timmy's, Uber down to work, pull a 4-hour shift, and then I would have class until 10 p.m.
And that was your grind, though, right? That
was my hustle. Yeah,
that was the hustle.
That was the hustle, doing something for money, doing something for passion. And that content game was something I knew how to do. So I wouldn't say I attribute it to my success. I would attribute it to my relevancy, because there were a lot of broadcasts early on that naturally I was either an experience for, people didn't know my name enough of, or I just couldn't get in front of the producers, right? Because either wasn't good enough, which I definitely wasn't, or I just wasn't, like I said, didn't have enough under me to prove that I should be on a desk with people who at the time were doing broadcasts like that, being like Kangas and Cubby and Magical and Jochi, right? So it's like guys who've been in the academy for quite some time. So that's how I proved that I should at least be looked at, which was by doing content, by starting up the hashtag Ravish report. Right? It's and just perpetuated from there. One of the first ones that I remember that took off was the one that I did for the Giant Slayer Spring Gauntlet. Was one of my first pieces of ideations. Every single video you see for the Ravish report was always done in one night. I would start filming them at 1 a.m. I would film, edit, cut, and put it out by 12, schedule a tweet, and go to bed. By 7, 8 a.m. every single time, because I am an idiot and I hated doing things in advance.
Time management, procrastination. Hey, diamonds are made under pressure, right? That's the famous saying. So definitely, I think you take that to another level. I do want to talk about your content game, specifically on Toronto Serenity. I think someone that you have a pretty good, solid, working, extensive relationship with is Sunny. And it seems like you two in isolation would not be like, oh, look at the synergy, look at these two people. But when you've come together on Toronto Serenity, the kind of content that you guys put out, the synergy, the natural chemistry that you guys have together is so unique. What can you kind of speak on in regards to working with Sunny and working for the Toronto Serenity in regards to like kind of how that experience has been? It's I believe it's been 6 months, a little bit.
It's been about 3 months or so since doing that, because so that contract is specifically under Rivalry, I want to say, right? So in terms of the content pieces that I've been assigned to, right, over the past years, like you mentioned, like the one recently, along with a couple other pieces that I've done, like for example, like for Silvxs, I think done some for Team Liquid TSM before, and most recently for Rivalry, and the contact was given to TSRN. Now with them, I do have a good working relationship with a lot of people on that team because of TVAL. So for those who may not know, TVAL or Toronto Valorant is the biggest Toronto Valorant LAN that happens. It has happened twice already. Both TVAL 1 and TVAL 2 were massive successes, and they had a lot of solid good pug teams come out with a lot of different pros who've gone on to they're playing the VCT and the VCL as well. It was just a genuinely solid environment. So as a former relationship there with that team, and with Sunny, I met Sunny at TVAL too, thanks to just other content creators who were there and invited out. She was a very early streamer, and I found we got along pretty well, like early on. And then, aside from seeing each other ever so often because of mutual friendships and stuff, like that sort of relationship and bond was there. But on camera, we both know we have a job and responsibility, right? Because content is its own thing, and she knows as well as I do. No matter how you were feeling that day, when the camera turns on with 3, 2, 1 action, you go. And I find with our own mutual understanding and our alignment in terms of our humor, that works really solidly. And we're also not afraid to like jab and like be able to just like poke at one another. So it does seem like we are friends on camera. We may or may not be. I won't reveal, but it's but that works well. I do respect Sunny a lot, and along with the work ethic and what she's able to do to grow herself as a streamer. So just that back and with mutual respect as well. It does also play into with the products we're to put out, all the content pieces and the ideations. I do have to give credit over to Brandon at TSRN, who helps ID all that, and also Saad, our videographer, who creates all the shots along with the editors to make it all happen, right? Along with Silver, who helps keep us all in check. So it is a genuine team effort for all the videos that you see today being put up for Rivalry.
You talked about it a little bit. You're obviously both a League caster and Valorant caster. I obviously started following when you did League stuff. I think you're one of the kind of few casters who's kind of casted at that tier 2 level on both the League and Valorant level, that you've just done so much work. Can you talk to me about kind of the differences in communities and the difference in casting and the style, right? Because League is a MOBA and Valorant's attack FPS. These are completely different kind of games and completely different fields. Can you talk to kind of maybe the transition from League to Valorant? Were you a big CSGO guy? How was the process kind of learning Valorant from the ground up, essentially?
So I'll go ahead and try to answer your questions one at a time. Number one, you talked about the differences in casting and the communities in League and Valorant. Number one, well, actually, even before that, but just might go ahead and add more context. I've not played a single game of CSGO. I still haven't. I got in Valorant and learned about it or the ground floor when it's still in beta due to some very early tournaments that were happening. And that was still around when I was still developing as a caster. So I was able to do some tournaments here and there, right? And was okay. But naturally, I didn't have the game knowledge to be able to, put myself completely in the mindset of attack FPS. The differences, though, because of which are very are worlds apart. Casting a MOBA, you have a lot of time for setup, story, downtime, along with being able to ramp up consistently, right? And then from there, you have the cooldown and go on phase. In attack FPS, like Valorant especially, you do not get that luxury. In the League, you control the pace. In Valorant, the pace controls you. You are expected, especially as a play-by-play, to be able to catch up or keep up. In League, you can have different styles of play-by-play, whether it be your overall rap god style, your informational style, your style that's more of a color/hybrid style, your hysterics, which is just called the most important thing, right? That way you're just hitting on all the right notes. In Valorant, there is one familiarity. You have to make sure to call the play as it happens, whether it be slower or faster. If it's slower, you call the most important things. If it's faster, you say it all. And sometimes diction can suffer if you are not able to keep up. For example, I cannot. I have not been able to do that in League, and I can't do that in Valorant. In League, I used to go for the hysteric style where I called the most important thing. And in Valorant, I heavily dove myself into learning as much about the game as possible so I could keep up. And because I wanted to do that, very early on, I was a color caster in Valorant because I knew I couldn't keep up with the play-by-play. So as I was saying, I learned as much as I could about the game just to be able to add and give context. Valorant as well, too, it's a lot more flowy, right? You feel the push and pull of the game, and you have to have such a heavy breadth of knowledge to become a successful caster in both aspects. Callers, of course, naturally can add context to the game, and they have to know about, like what the agents can do with the setup of the map read, but play-by-play as well, too. Your calls have to add context and set up a story round by round. And you can't do that if you don't know what you're saying. It is very simple, and it's very easy to tell somebody who does not know and simply spitballing versus someone who's casted the VCT level and can pull you along and show you page by page how this game has progressed, identify patterns, modules, and really show you what the team is displaying. Valorant is very hard. It's hard in the sense of learning the game, right, naturally, and then being able to contextualize it to an audience. League is hard for a different sense because of the depth, the history, and the sheer amount of time it takes to even get a basic understanding. Valorant, you can probably understand from the push and pull of just watching VODs and playing the game a little bit. League, if you are not playing the game every single goddamn day, you are falling behind. So balancing the both was a tough act. I can still say it's like I've definitely dived more into the Valorant side than the League side because of the opportunities that I've gotten, right? I was saying to you before this too, I didn't really leave League, man. League on the offseason didn't give me much love. I did the LFL and that didn't work out. I won't get into what happened, but it's just, we all chose to walk away because our needs weren't being met as broadcasters. And I mean the most basics of needs. There's a narrative out there that says that we quit. Well, that says that we were fired. No, we left of our own accord because it's because of really strenuous circumstances, I'll say. But yeah, that's and then I was thankful enough that I was able to find enough success in another community.
Talking to Valorant though, like a lot of people were making that switch, right? It couldn't have been easy for you in regards to saying like, hey, I want to swap over to Valorant. I want to start focusing my time on this game, because you had people from CSGO, TAC FPS switching over. You had Overwatch people switching over. You had other league people switching over. I think one of the big things was that the Valorant casting space was very saturated or oversaturated at the time. Would you still say that's kind of the case right now, or would you say that's kind of died down a little bit? Like what, it's difficult to get in that space. So why make that decision? Was it like you said, league didn't give you love?
Well, I was never a person to put all my eggs in one basket from the beginning. I knew like League was cool, and like I do attribute the caster I am today due to a lot of the mentors that I find in League of Legends and being able to help find my own style, right? It's like, and some of my very, very good friends in esports have been through League of Legends, right? It's like, people, but people like Joshi, Rafa, right? Kangas, Mazel, like it's like beatdown, per chance. It's just like all these people that I met through League, and I can Destrux, in fact, I should say as well. Yeah, but it is a. But I always knew that like if I buckle down, I would never achieve the success that I wanted. And so even when I was doing League, I was also doing content stuff too. I was doing other games, like just like whatever shit games I could come across. Like, dude, I casted Fall Guys, I casted Among Us, casted Apex. I still learned how to produce. I learned how to observe everything on the back end as well, to just to make sure I was staying in as many places as possible and taking as many gigs as possible as well. Because there was a fierce need in me to be successful. I needed to make it. No matter where, no matter how, I needed to fucking make it. Because as you know, I had a clock on me. I had a watch that I needed to show that I deserved to be here, to both the people watching, to all my peers, and to my mother, who as questioning as she was, she still believed in me no matter what. And I owed it to her to make something of myself. It's the classic and bigger story of you work to give back to those who gave to you. And that is all I wanted to do, which is why I worked as hard as I did 7 days a goddamn week, doing whatever I could. But to go into more other specifics, like I was also once again lucky enough that because I still had eggs in my basket over there, I made enough connections to find out about certain opportunities that are happening, such as community casting. Other people that I'd worked with would invite me to come on to cast with them sometimes, like, and to offer roles and fills, right? Because remember, I was a color, so there weren't many of us back then, and so I also chose the least likely role because I knew if I got in as a color at the ground floor, I would offer a valuable role, and I did. I was thankful enough for that I was able to form, get on like early things like Valorant First Strike for UMG, where I got to cast Ninja back when he was playing in Valorant, and Benji and I think Benji Fishy was also playing with him too, casting early versions of Xset and Gen G back when they were all French Canadians. Xset back when they had We Did on the team, in fact. So it's very, very early on Valorant. Like it's just finding enough staples, and then from there it's just constant growth, working in collegiate, and of course being able to work into getting on nights broadcasts, where one fateful day my world exploded.
Let's talk about that, and I want to kind of wrap that into my next question, which is like, obviously you kind of did the blueprint of a caster, right? You got on a broadcast, you got on something relatively known, nights. Obviously, you were on the NSG stuff before that, but the nights broadcast, you had the clip that went viral, right? You had that, and now you're sitting at this level where you're still kind of doing some of the C tier, B tier stuff. What do you think is stopping RavishingRavish from getting to that VCL level? Because I don't think it's any secret that I would talk to a lot of people and they agree that like you should be at that level. You should be at the challengers level. Like you need to be there. there was a fucking Reddit post literally last week asking where you were, man. Like, what do you think is stopping you? What's the problem? What's jamming you up?
Good fucking question. Good. Okay. So
come on, talk your shit.
So let's go into the first thing we raised, right? Now me blowing up was once again complete fucking accident, bro. I've told the story a couple of times where I was doing LFL that day, right? And I did 5 best of ones. LFL was started very, very early on. We were up at 9 a.m. in the morning in the studio by 10, and I was casting till about 6 p.m. About 6 p.m. 5 BO1s the league I did. I was exhausted as it is. And then I go in to do 2 full 3 BO3s, right? Of Valorant after that. And by the end of the night or around near the end, I'd been up and I've been casting for about 14 hours. So when I got towards the tail end of that first BO3, I was on pure vibes. I just said what just came first to my head and just went off of that. Now, that night on its own was special because I was lucky enough to be assigned the finals broadcast of where this was. So this was the new TSM squad versus the OG 100 squad, or other way around. I can't remember. No, I think I think this was the new 100 squad versus the OG TSM squad, right? And it was a rematch of First Strike finals. So there were a lot of people watching. There was luckily no other Valorant broadcast going on at the same time, and it was also one of the first times where you had people like Tarek, watching the nights and co-streaming just to broadcast there. Like him, like Nate Shot, and a lot of other big streamers were all co-streaming this finals event, watching 100 Thieves, watching TSM. It was a mixture and collections of the right place at the right time. In fact, that clip blew up in the first BO3. Yeah. That was when I was casting 100 Thieves in N-Box at the time. Yeah, and my friend likes to describe it as somebody falling down the stairs to try to catch themselves at every single step. And I don't disagree. That truly was what that clip was. It's just
I love the copy pasta that they don't want the smoke. They're not firefighting. It took over, right? It took over Twitter for a couple days. It took over Reddit. Yeah. But I would say that feeds into your casting style, though, specifically for Valorant. Like, you're obviously someone that's known for very high energy. You've got, I would say, a pretty unique style in regards to your play-by-play. How did you actually end up kind of developing that? What inspiration did you take some? Because that was like a rhyme scheme. Are you taking stuff from hip hop? Are you taking stuff from other casters? How are you crafting that style? Because I mean, clearly it's off the top of the dome, and you can say you were tired, you were vibing, but you have to. There's got to be something where you're like, yeah, this is where I take inspiration from. This is who I am. Like, this is why I do the way I do. Because your style is very unique, in my opinion.
So thank you. It plays into a lot of who I am as a person. There's advice that I got from my friend Josh Joshi, as well, a long time ago, where she fiercely challenged me to realize what makes you different. Like, what is your unique selling point as a caster? Anybody can be high energy, anybody can yell, and like anybody can do what I do, realistically. But I have to prove to a point what makes me better than anyone at, like my level and anyone at the level above me to be able to take their job, quote unquote. So a lot of it was formed around whenever I was comfortable, right? I was raised around speaking just the Toronto lingo. Now, that is a bastardization of Patois. And so you can also akin it to South London slang as well, too. So it's like, so to be able to talk very, how Cubby says, urban, as he so promptly puts it.
One way.
And yeah, it is. Isn't it? Yeah, it's and like it kind of just like was was where like I kin my personality to, right? Where like I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood as well, and this is just where and for those who live in Toronto, I grew up around Jane and Finch, right? It's like right around Sentinel near York, so it's not the greatest of places, and it's stuff you see and hear every single day, right? And I would say like just like that kind of form. So when I get comfortable, I may lean into what I've been trying to say to y'all about all this, right? It just goes into what I've been talking about. It's real simple, it's real easy what I do. And and my sense of humor stuff was formed by the friends I was around, and one of my best friends, Joel, as well. Him and I, for fun, just freestyle. Like we just chill and freestyle half the time. And so it's just going back to my roots as a person, and that's what brings sometimes some of the best out of me. Those very clippable moments. Now, it may not be the best casting, right? But that also harkens to me finding a balance in between what's clippable and what's worth listening to. I find I've existed in this very weird medium of other people really like me, or they never want me to breathe again, which is okay. That's understandable. Like, I'm not for everybody, very clearly. But for those I am, that's cool. And for what's stopping me to getting above that level, I mean, I would say, man, it's pretty simple. I could go ahead and like contribute it to, like my sound is maybe not what Riot is looking for. I also don't have a consistent duo either for Valorant, which is a tough sell because Valorant loves selling duos. I would love to be able to host, but then I won't speak too much on other stuff in the back end, but you already have other established hosts that were there from the beginning of VC level, like Sierra Dawn, who transitioned over from Game Changers as well, and also from Academy. She's already in the Riot system as a host, and then was able to move over to Challengers. And of course, a Mark Block Wilson, who was there since First Strike as a host, right? Was able to move over as well too. So it's like and plus alongside that, there are already other duos that were casting at a much higher level than I was, who were naturally put in the pipeline and picked up. Upbite and Sully, Terra Dryad, and Shift and Dust. Right? These guys were literally casting VCT when I was still casting Tier 3. Right? And I'm talking about early VCT as well, too. So it's like it makes sense why they're there. And to say that I'm better than any of them too, I feel like I don't know, you the judge of that. I feel like I'm quite good, but I find there are a lot of things that can develop in on to have a chance to compete against any one of them. Plus, without a duo, makes it sell a little bit harder. And for what's stopping, man, I don't know. I do not know. I feel as though I even just in the last couple of months, because I got my shot to go on challenges for open coast qualifiers, I could agree that the performance I had then was abysmal. I tried too hard. I was too nervous, and there were a lot of factors that play for me that I find I wasn't able to perform. But I know as well, like by identifying that where our shortcomings were, I can confidently say I came past them quite well. And in terms of what next year holds, hey, we'll see, man. Off season's a long time, a very, very long time. But I'm glad I at least have things to circumvent it.
Well, let's talk about the things that you have to circumvent it. We talked about the Toronto.
That was the easiest lob to you, by the way. I just want you to know you're welcome.
Hey, you've been on my side before. It's not fair. You've been on my side before. You know what I'm looking for.
I know exactly, right?
Let's talk about it, because you recently announced some pretty fucking banger news. Yeah, literally 2 days ago, you released some banger news here. You are officially the content creator for the esports social division for theScore Esports, correct? That's correct. That is correct. So I want to talk about that, because it was almost, I talked to some other people and they were like, it was a long time coming. Like, you were already boys with some of the Score Esports people. Your name was getting thrown around there. Obviously, now you're officially put on. Can you talk a little bit about, obviously, you've only been officially announced for 2 days, but obviously there was a lot of back chatter. Can you talk about what this actual role entails? in regards to the Score Esports division and what that means for you? Like, what kind of content are you going to be putting out? What does it really mean to be a content creator for the esports socials division? What does that entail?
Sure. So first and foremost, who are you talking to? Huh? Who's saying no? Who's saying what? What's going on? Who your sources?
You got birds. I'm in the scene a little bit here and there. I got people whispering. I know.
Yeah, man. It's So I've been around the Score Esports for quite some time. There's a fun story I also told in my interview as well, that I used to walk by their old office down by King Street here in Toronto, where they were right by the Arc'teryx office. Whenever I was on my way to visit a homie, I used to walk by, you stop for a couple of seconds, look at that sign, and be like, one day I'm going to walk in there with impunity. And then I would go on my way, because I was a fan of the Score Esports. I'd watched the stories I've watched their videos, just a story of their doing at meets and their various series of to keep up to date with like just content in general. And like, plus I like the style a lot. What that means for my job though is, so they've made a pretty heavy shift in doing much more short form stuff. So much more executable, easy, timely pieces that can, like generate and grow their audiences. So you can notice as well across their Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, especially the short stuff, right? They've been churning out a lot more content there, and I'm there to help supplement that. I'm somebody who's had my pulse on the esports for quite some time in a lot of different scenes. I've done the content games I talked about previously for quite a while as well, because I script, I edit, and I put out my own stuff. Plus, I was also working in socials for a year and a half as well at Rumble. So the role I find fits in well. Funny enough, I've applied to the Score Esports like 4 times and got rejected 4 times over the years. So this was nice. I'd say.
Yeah, this was vindication though. Like, what did that mean for you as an individual? Like, it's you've had multiple probably moments in your career where obviously when you were making it sustainable, you had the vindication. You were featured on the NSG, the Knights. You had the clip go viral. You had so many moments, but what makes this a little bit different? Because this is like an official capacity. This is like I'm going to be doing this. I've got something to do in the off season. It's not scary. I got a healthcare, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe you got healthcare. I don't know. I don't know if the score. I don't score like that.
Well, I'm Canadian. I have healthcare no matter what.
Fair enough.
I'm being chilling. Yeah. But now I can go to the dentist. That's the thing.
you got vision. You got dental. That's right. But like,
I do. I got orthopedics, bro. I can get shoes. Like it's great. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
I think you can talk about your benefits. I don't think
whatever.
I
don't know if it's NDA or whatever.
I don't think that's NDA.
Yeah, but either way, like it's cool, man, because this is a full-time position, right? That I do. I do about 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. I can do this, and the most important factor for me was that I'm still able to freelance on the side, right? I'm still able to like work, work as well as a caster and continue to do so. Now, of course, I can't speak into too much of the back and forths and just the legalese of our conversations, right? But going into the discussion, that was the most important factor for me, and I'm very happy we were able to make it work, because I really want to work for theScore. I respect the company a lot, right? And as I already mentioned before, too, I've been a fan. Some people that I'm working with now, I watched as well growing up on some of their videos, which is very cool that we're not coworkers. And as you mentioned as well, like I'm familiar with a decent amount of them, right? Where they know me from the scene, they know me from the clip, where in fact, most of them, I wouldn't say most of them, but a decent amount of them became aware of me because of the clip. I remember, I think like they mentioned how they wanted to like put that out as a short on their socials. I don't know if they ever did end up doing it. I never actually checked. So it's like the fact that I was on a company that I wanted to work for, right, is on its own is a very weird feeling.
That's got weight. Right. That's got weight. Hey man, you put me on your socials. Like you wanted me originally. So come on, like this is already a match made in heaven.
It's a cool time, man. And like I'm just glad that I got to come along here and work alongside them. And it's exactly that, where it's I am sustainable. I am working full time in esports. A sentence not many people get to say, and I'm very happy that I can with impunity.
I do want to jump in more into kind of like how this might, like you said, you got a pretty favorable contract in regards to pursuing some still of the Valorant casting or whatever freelance casting you want to do.
Mm.
How is this going to kind of affect the other things you have your hands in? You've got your hands in a lot of different cookie jars. You've got obviously theScore, you've obviously got the Toronto Serenity, you've got Silvxs. Like, how is this all going to affect? You've also got your own content that you want to push out as well. Like, do you have a fear that it might, like, you've got to push something to the wayside? Have you already kind of made some cuts in your head? Like, can you talk about that a little bit?
Dude, I mean, this is day 2, man. It's a this is literally the second day of me working, but I already know and knew going into it, I would have to make sacrifices naturally. Now, because before I could take on gigs that were like midday or like, you know, could take them on early morning, so on, or just like kind of be flexible to my own schedule. But here now I have a set amount of time where I blocked off for the day. And, you know, I can't speak too much into what goes into me getting freelancing stuff and doing all that, but it'll come. I'll pretty much just have to decide the importance and priorities of things as they come. Because as being a full-time contractor, as being a full-time employee that's signed on, naturally the job has to come first.
Got a commitment.
And yeah, that is a commitment that I made to them that I would put theScore esports first, and I will. That is it is just a natural progression. And so with that, I'll have to balance things on evenings and weekends. That's simply what I can do. Whether it be for content things, for tournaments, whatever. I'm lucky enough that a decent amount of stuff takes place, you know, after 5. So I'm not too worried about that. But you see, I might have to cut down on definitely like my own stuff and things that I take on, right? Because then my weekends will be filled with doing OQs, right? So it's like that's gonna be a whole thing. And like doing just all the promotion tournaments and stuff. So that in general will just will put me in a tough position where I'm just can only say yes to so much. And of course, I'll have to push a bit of my social life to the wayside, some sleep here and there if I want to, especially push on my own content as well. But that's up to me to figure out my own priorities. And of course, just take time on what I can do to push my own brand. Because here, I have to be able to establish myself in the company first and see how I can recover from there. I will still say I am very, very lucky to be in this position that I am in. I'm very thankful that over the past 3 years, I've been able to make enough connections to put out enough that I was able to land this role. There were a lot of talented people that I knew would, in fact, to apply to this too. And so I'm just grateful that like people put themselves out there for me. It's only day 2. So it's gonna take me a while before I start maybe appearing on some of their content. You see me on some of the socials, like hosting and putting on videos and stuff. But I'm gonna do my damnedest to integrate myself into another brand new community. I've done it before. I'll do it again, and see how I can establish myself, improve myself, my worth, my value, both as a caster, as RavishingRavish, was Ravishing Man on the internet, and of course, Ravish Khanna, theScore esports.
Let's swap kind of the topic over to a more holistic view of Riot Games and kind of the tier 2 scene for League
You're
and
Valorant. Fired,
bro. You talk as much as you want about it. There's been a lot of chatter going on. Yeah. Obviously in the leagues, I think that's the thing that's been really been dominant, but also the tier 2 Valorant scene. A lot of people are upset with kind of, some would say, the lack of Riot support, whereas someone I know who aptly put it, League was the first child. Riot made all their mistakes. They did everything. And then Valorant was the second child, right?
That's right, baby. Valorant on top. League can suck it. Let's go.
Valorant is the second child where they're like, okay, here's all the mistakes we made. Let's not do that. And let's kind of put out a better product. There are still some issues with the Valorant scenes, some issues with the kind of the lack of Riot support, the challenger scene. Where do you think they have done right by, and where do you think kind of some of the things have fallen to the wayside a little bit, where they're maybe making the same mistakes?
So, the number one thing is, now the support is technically there, and they put out a good like progression system in terms of combining, combining like all the different regions and help to support the actual scene by garnering viewership and all the co-streamers and stuff. That there's a lot of decent amount of attention around it too, which is cool. And the best part, number one, the thing that sucks the most is that out of all the Ascension tournaments, only one team can qualify for VCT. One team every 2 years can become part of franchising. That's like it. That just sucks, because then if you're looking at next year's Ascension, what are you supposed to do? Like, it's like, what are you qualifying for right now? That's maybe my own gap in knowledge, of course, but I'm just thinking as to what incentives they're playing for when it comes down to a professional player who's kind of getting into it, pugging it out, playing in your NSGs, playing in your Knights Gauntlets, and eventually making it to VCL, making onto Ascension, and then now what? Like, it's because every pro's dream is to make it into VCT, right? They want to make it into franchising and be signed and have a stable job and career, because a lot of those teams playing in VCL are free agents. And on the other part, it's a similar play to League, where the off season is painfully long. Valorant, unfortunately, ends much earlier than League does. Right? At least League has Worlds to go off of. But even then, it's the same case with both Academy and Challenges, where they end so in August, man. We're talking about almost 6 months of off season, and the pain point was identified pretty early on, that if you were going through open qualifiers and close qualifiers for the VCL, and your team did not make it into the tournament, your year's done. Good luck. That's it. So, and they had to figure out like what they could compete in, like going into NSGs and your GLGs and your gauntlets, to just try to make a couple of bucks and continue practicing yourself as a pro, grinding ranks, streaming, whatever it is, right? Because you're just waiting for your next shot to potentially go into the right ecosystem. Now, Leo Faria has come out and said how they want to make Premier, right, more integrated into the VCL. And that's a really good step in the right direction. That's exactly what I want to hear, but it'll just be a while before any of that gets integrated, which is the toughest part.
They're trying to remove the barrier to entry, right, for the path to pro, because for League it's play a lot of solo queue, get high on the ladder, have a breakout performance on an amateur team potentially, and then pray to God that somebody picks you up, right? Well, for Valorant, they're trying to like say, hey, if you're good enough, if you've got a squad, if you've got 5 people, go through our integrated system, try to make it here, try to make it there. But the fundamental problem still remains, like you said, where what do you do for 6 months when your team disbands because this org was like, no, we don't believe in you. We want to pick up new people, or we want to pick up cheaper people. It's not a sustainable lifestyle. It can get really tough. And I think there's no clean solution for the path to pro, right? Like, it is, do you think it almost kind of has to stay a very almost exclusive kind of thing, where it's like, this isn't something that can get fleshed out to a level of like, I can do this, and now I'm here. It's like, I got to do this. I got to get lucky. I got to do this. I got to get lucky. And then maybe someone will notice me. Like, do you ever think that's going to change?
So for League, no. Like, that hasn't changed for a long time. For Valorant, though, I'm hopefully and patiently waiting for the next steps to be introduced, right? Because like I already mentioned with the Premier system, there is a genuine progression for how you can move forward in that path. All that needs to be figured out is the middle aspect of what happens during the mid and the end year. That's just the biggest thing. And how we can perhaps extend the VCL throughout the year, right? Just so people still have something to keep fighting for. That's really all I'm looking for. Because that would be like if Clash like led into academy. Like it's not gonna happen, but it proves like, and in my head, how baffling it is, but also how cool it is that it's such a community led aspect, and how possible it is for the whole 5 friends in a dream situation to be there. That's what made me fall in love with League of Legends, and that's what I look forward to in Valorant coming forward.
We've talked about the tier 2. I do want to kind of talk at the top level, right? Because I think one thing I've noticed is, and it's been consistent pretty much across esports, but I think it's, for whatever reason, I think RiotGames, both of the games have had this kind of issue where a lot of the teams, certain players are just, either in contract prison. We've got Ye playing for DSG, which I doubt it was his first choice for a lot of people, right? Like his contract's not getting picked up. He's got a lot of big buyouts. Organizations and teams are trying to make money off of buyouts for players. They're trying to trade them like Pokemon cards. Do you have any worries for the tier 1 scene in regards for Valorant? Because like right now, views are amazing, co-streams are amazing, VCT America is really big, all the teams are amazing, but it almost feels like a fever dream where I'm like, wait, guys, they just did this in League. Like buyouts are really big. Why is like the top player not being signed to like some of the best teams? Why are there players being bounced out who are high level talent? Like this almost like returns now kind of mentality is being swapped over to Valorant. And it's a really big issue. Do you kind of have any similar concerns, or have you seen something? Are you not worried? Are you not pressed?
Dude, the Ye and Vanity thing, well, I agree, really confusing at the time, but like budget cuts are a thing. Like that is a very simple explanation. Like it's like, and Ye was the most sought after free agent in the market, right? So that's just makes the most sense. Now, it was cool seeing him in DSG as well. And I respect a lot of what Toast is doing to bring eyes to both now, at LCQ and of course now VCL. It's really unfortunate that the team isn't performing to level. I'm not going to go into too much as to why. And like in terms of like just where they're just not going to progress at all because of certain aspects, but it's naturally just like he took an offer where he was like, if I can't play the pro level, I still want to play. And I don't know what his contract was. I don't know how much he got paid. But at the end of the day, if you are a competitor, you want to compete. That drive doesn't go away. It doesn't get satiated by playing a ranked game, right? You want to be in the environment, and I imagine Ye saw that as an opportunity. Past that, am I worried about the VCT as right now? Not really. It seems to be a pretty healthy spot in terms of how it is front facing. I can't speak too much in the back end for where the things might be crumbling, which I don't think they are. It's just the first year though, and you do have to treat the league and the franchisees like they're in their infancy. It'll take a bit before things settle down. And after the settling period of about 3 years, especially after the first cycle of VCL has gone through, then we can evaluate truly where Valorant has its fuck ups or where it's just shiny and glowing. And so far, it's going pretty well.
I would have to agree on that. It is definitely dominating kind of all aspects of social media, Twitch, YouTube, everything like that. Like you said, a lot of good content creators coming out. Like there's so much there. And like I said, it just feels like Valorant is the second child. They're not making the mistakes. They're not, they're nurturing it and caring for it very, very well. Ravish, I think your internet is definitely saying that we can't continue this interview. We've had a couple.
Am I lagging?
Yeah, lagging a little bit. I'll take it as a sign. Maybe you're doing it yourself. Maybe you're trying to get out of here. But I really do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule with all the casting, with obviously your new full-time job, everything like that. It was on short notice as well with the DM, but I really do appreciate you taking time out of your life to come talk with me and sit down with me. Any shout outs, any plans, future contents, just plug them in right now. All of his stuff is going to be in the description box below. The Score Esports stuff, the Toronto Serenity, the Silvxs, his own socials. I'll do my due diligence to make sure you know everything's there.
I mean, it's simple enough, man. For everything I do, You can follow me at RavishingCast on all platforms. At RavishingRavish, you don't have the account anymore. Elon, please let me get it. For God's sakes. The account doesn't exist. God, please. But that's kind of about it. I mean, like I said, RavishingCast on all platforms. Y'all make sure also to see locked in theScore esports for all short form content and more. Hopefully you'll see my face on there soon enough. And I appreciate everybody's support, man. I could not have gotten here without the tons and tons of people who helped nurture me, guide me, and show me how to be better. So I owe a lot of my success to them. Thank you to you all. And thank you, Shibby, for having me.